watched him out there, I thought, well, I hope he's 100% sure of himself. Because if he's only 98% sure, he's totally nuts to do the things he does. And that I'm just as crazy taking lessons from him.
The sound is just awesome. When I stand behind the start line, there's nothing like that.
Watching what he could do with that bike, it became obvious he could do more than talk a good game. You know, I've seen a lot of athletes come and go. Some can do it, some can only teach it, but few, very few, can do both. I began to see Gary Bailey in a different light.
March of 1970, I started traveling around the country, left California, left everything there except for my van, my trailer, and motorcycles, got rid of my house, got rid of everything, and just went on the road and started teaching schools, had no clue, quit my job that I was doing, and said, you know what, I want to be a motorcycle racer, and I want to try and teach schools, and I want to see how it goes. The first school I'd ever done was at Lorain, Ohio, when Fentons were promoting the event there, the Trans Am event. And a couple of the Europeans were supposed to do a motocross school. They decided that afternoon before that they didn't want to do it. So Mr. Fenton come to me and said, hey, can you do a motocross school? I got 20-some guys coming in the morning. I go, I don't know anything about a motocross school. He said, well, do something because these guys are going to be here and they're ready for a school. So, well, all right, I'll give it a shot. So what I did is I got the guys there in the morning, explained the situation to them, said, hey, I'm your teacher. I'm going to straight out ride. I don't know what I'm doing. I said, I know how to ride. Obviously, I'm one of the top American riders. I know, what I do. I can explain that to you. I can talk you through it. You can ask me questions. I'll give you answers. I said, well, just wing it. I don't know what to do. So we went around, spent the whole day. Got done at the end of the day. Everybody was just ecstatic, just going, man, this was great. 1972, I won 2 AMA Nationals. Let's put it this way, I competed in 2 AMA Nationals, competed in 2, and won both of them.
Super. One was at the Super Speedway over Talladega, right?
One was at Talladega, the other one was at Washington, Indiana. And the only reason I didn't ride more of them is because my schedule was already kind of set. A few of the Nationals had already gone by. I hadn't even contemplated riding them. People had asked me to do schools there, so I thought, hey, while I'm there, I might as well ride the National too, And Talladega had asked me to build the track there, so I thought, of might while I'm here, I might as well, ride the thing. There ain't no sense in not riding it. So I rode both of them, won both of them, and I thought, geez, that might have been the year I should have rode all of them. I might have got me a championship out of that. So,
who hung the tag Professor on you, or where did that ever come from?
Don Woods did an article when I was in Shreveport, Louisiana, and titled it "Professor Bailey's Cure for the European Invasion."
You have a son, David Bailey, became one of the great racers in motocross. Tell us how that began and how proud you must have been to see David progress. And I know he helped at your schools at a young age.
I am a believer that anybody that has a natural athletic talent, okay, you can't make anyone a champion. But if they have a natural athletic ability, I think you can make them a champion. But it takes a lot of time, a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication. Not only on the part of the person that's helping them, but on the person themselves that is going to do that, which is one thing that David had. Some of it I think that I instilled in him, and some of it was just something that he had. He knew responsibility, he knew what it takes, and when he decided he was going to do something, it was going to happen.
Over the years, no one benefited more from the professor's instruction than his son, the little professor, David. But it was tough going.
It was never good enough. You know, I couldn't ride good enough or sweep the floor good enough or wash my bike good enough. It was always, he's like, what about this spot under here, you with all the mud? You didn't lay the bike over, did you? You know, when you're young, it's like, you know, what difference does it make? And then as you get a little older, you see the value of being organized, being clean. And there's lots of kids that are good, but, you know, I think that I stood out a little bit more because I paid attention to detail.
Oh, David stood out all right. In '83, 4, 5, and 6, he was the man to beat. Imagine how many races and titles he'd have won had cruel fate not intervened. Father and son, they had a deal.
You give me 100%, I'll give you 100%. You give me 80%, I'll give you 80%. But I'm not going to give you 100% for you to give me back 80%. That's a problem with those kids today. Parents are giving them 100%, kids are putting out 50 and 60%.
I always thought that I would be like a better dad than my dad was. I was like, man, he was kind of like, I could never really, it just was never good enough, and he kind of got on me here and there. And, you know, it wasn't bad, it was great, but I just thought that when I had my chance, any of the stuff that I kind of didn't like, I just wouldn't do that. I'd handle that a different way. And I am so right smack dab in the middle of doing the same things that he did to me, I can't even believe it.
You always seem to have a smile on your face. You seem to be appreciative of what life is, period.
I am. I'm very fortunate. And I realize it, but people say it all the time, so it really keeps it here. There's very few people in this world who get to do what they love doing and make a living in it. And what I love more than anything, I love riding motorcycles. And I love teaching.
It's a chance you seize. How long am I gonna stand with my head stuck under the sand? I'll stop before I can stop, or before I see things the right way up. All that noise and all that sound, all those places
I began to see Gary Bailey in a different light.
Saddleback Park, a motorcycle playground carved out of the Southern California back hills. Here, a feisty breed of teenager, only recently graduated from the living room Hot Wheel circuit, comes to play a rough and tumble game called motocross, where a crack-up can mean a splint instead of a touch of plastic glue. It demands hair-trigger reflexes, superb physical conditioning, and the kind of courage usually found only in the innocence of youth or the young at heart. Like former basketball great Bill Russell, who's come to learn and perhaps race at Saddleback.
Nowadays, I live in a pretty workaday world. It seems I'm forever cooped up in a plane or in a hotel room. But the bike is my defiance of all of that. I just hop aboard and ride, anywhere. I meet all kinds of people and just, well, feel free. As free as a breeze.
But Bill wanted to increase his freedom, to get off the highways and onto the back trails. So he went to 6'7" motocross champion Gary Bailey to master the art of riding on dirt. The first lesson was how to stop.
This is where you stop the first time, by using the rear brake only. All right? Now, we go back down here. We go approximately 24 feet further back. And this is how much shorter distance you stopped in by using both brakes together. Now, this can mean when you're trail riding sometimes, you know, when you come around a corner and there's a big ditch or a hole or something, you got to get stopped real quick. It can mean whether you stop in the hole or before you get to the hole. And coming into a corner now, if we was to take and reverse the situation, we had a straightaway coming down through here, and you were driving real hard, you and another rider were coming side by side into this corner, charging into there. Now, the rider that has to put on the rear brake only would have to apply the brake back here in order to be able to stop for this corner, where you can keep the power on under full power, charging into the corner, and then braking here, which would mean you could pick up approximately, say, a half a second in 24 feet, which a half a second isn't much time, but you take a racetrack that has, say, 10 corners on it, which most racetracks do, and you pick up a half a second, you're talking about 5 seconds a lap going in just by being able to stop the motorcycle properly over everyone else and what they're using to stop the motorcycle. So the front brake is extremely important in getting the motorcycle stopped at all times.
Shock number one. Gary spun off the starting line and tore up that first hill. And I thought, no way. No way at all. As he went over the top, I half hoped I'd never see him again. But no such luck.
Feet out to the back. Bring yourself out. Okay. Go ahead. That was good.
Oh, thanks.
Right there, okay? Now keep yourself leaning forward. The main thing is to keep this right here. All right, give it a little bit more gas.
Well, I finally tried it his way. And it worked. I figured that was that. But it was only the beginning.
All right, that's much better. The thing we're going to do now is try and get it going in a straight line coming up. In other words, instead of wandering clear over this way, set your eye up there in a straight line and try and come off straight. Keep your way right over the front end.
better, but not good enough for Gary Bailey. That man kept me running up that damn hill over and over again like I was some kind of rookie taking layups. But I was a rookie, and after a while I began to get the idea. I was shifting gears smoother, going faster, and straighter. Up till now, I thought of Gary Bailey as just another nice guy. When I watched him out there, I thought, well, I hope he's 100% sure of himself. Because if he's only 98% sure, he's totally nuts to do the things he does. And that I'm just as crazy taking lessons from him. Watching what he could do with that bike, it became obvious he could do more than talk a good game.
No goes right.
You know, I've seen a lot of athletes come and go. Some can do it, some can only teach it. But few, very few, can do both.
Next corner.
I began to see Gary Bailey in a different light.
Tell me, what do you kind of think about motorcycle riding, physical part of it versus basketball?
I think that riding motocross takes more concentration than playing basketball. And then the mistakes are not, you get, you know, if you make a mistake in basketball, the guy gets a free throw.
Yeah.
You make a mistake here.
It's constant concentration here. You know, you've got to have, you can't afford mistakes. There's so many riders that are all going so fast. And there is a risk there if you make a mistake that you get hurt bad too. You know, it's not like a guy just goes up and takes a free throw, like you say. You know, when you make a mistake, if you go over a bank, it's not, it's not all that easy. But
you know, it's like in most sports, the guy or the team that concentrates the most will make the fewest mistakes and they'll win. And I see this thing here is steady concentration, and the guy that can go to the edge without making a mistake is going to win. That's the guy that can concentrate and knows his capabilities. Now came the course itself.
all right, you were leaning, but you needed the power to keep you up. You never come on with the power. And if you don't come on with the power, the motorcycle, once you start leaning, just keeps going. There's nothing to hold it up. You've got to come on with that power to get that back wheel pulling the motorcycle forward.
So I came around again, and this time I thought I handled the curve pretty good. But obviously it wasn't good enough for Gary Bailey. Nothing seemed to satisfy him.
Drive just a little bit harder this time. Only what I want you to do, I want you to get up a little bit off of the seat, okay? And just get your legs working a little bit. Just stay close to the seat, all right? But just let yourself work a little bit so that the motorcycle's taking all the beating and you're not taking any of it, all right?
But I had one advantage, a very good memory. I knew that if I got into a tight situation in the race, I'd remember the right thing to do.
Low gear right here. Come into the corner, you hit low gear, you make the turn, and as soon as you got it straightened up and looking for that corner, right on the gas. Hit it. Start pulling away and catch second gear and drive it on to the next corner. Okay? It's looking good. Looking real good.
Well, that made me feel better, and I felt I was really getting it together. Then came the steepest hill on the course, and it bothered me.
You know, on this section right down through here, Bill, when we come down through here, what we're going to have to do is first of all, I got to get you standing up more on the motorcycle coming down. You're still sitting down and letting your body work with the motorcycle coming down through there. You want to get your legs up and let your legs work with the suspension. So you just kind of stay steady and let the motorcycle work underneath you when coming down through there. This will also help you to have more control over the motorcycle and allow you to have a little bit better braking coming down the hill. How do you feel coming down the hill now? I mean, what seems to be bothering you more?
I can't feel the brakes until they lock up. I haven't got it feel yet. No, that's the one thing I haven't got yet.
Yeah. Well, if you stay on top of the motorcycle and stay over the handlebars, even if you lock up the back wheel, it doesn't really make that much difference. It doesn't give you the bite and slow you down because it has a tendency to skid the wheel, you know, and it still keeps you moving forward a little bit quicker. But if you get a hold of the clutch so you don't kill the engine, if you do lock up the rear wheel, you can pull in the clutch, let the wheels stay locked up a little bit if they are, and just drive it right into the corner anyway.
No matter how hard I tried to do it right, to stand up, lean forward, let the bike work under me, that big daddy of a hill just bugged me. I was discovering that the entire course was a monster, from start to finish.
Cut it off. I think that's good. You look good coming down. Everything feels good now. I think it's a matter of confidence now, you know, and letting yourself go a little bit faster because you've got complete control through the whole thing. It's all smooth and clean, and you can't ask for any more than that. It's just a matter of time and experience now is all. I think we'll just move on down from jump here and on down the next hill and go from there.
Sure glad to be up that other hill, I can tell you that. Now it was a day before a race, and Gary ran me through the course at least a dozen times. It was a little like being back with the Celtics before the playoffs. You're dragging after playing an 82-game schedule, and yet you're confident that you'll win. Because, well, you have to.
Tell me, how do you feel?
I'm tired, sore, scared. But other than that, I'm feeling great.
I think we got around the thing pretty well. You've got most of the corners down fairly well. You probably need, coming up out of these corners, like down through here, you can stand to get a little bit harder on the throttle and go a little bit quicker. But I think you ought to do fairly well. They got a beginner's class, you know, tomorrow. I think there's about 6 or 8 guys that entered along with you. And, you know, I don't expect you to win the race.
I expect to win.
You expect to win?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's a good attitude to have. But I think you ought to do fairly well in it. What do you say we go on in and take it easy and get ready for tomorrow and get a good night's sleep?
All right. When I saw those kids the next day, I thought about the difference between young riders and old riders. The kids don't know what it's like to be hurt. But I'd been hurting all week.
Just got to finish, right? Finish and have a good time. That's the main thing. That's what you're out there for, okay? Good luck. Go on and get it.
As for my race with the other adult riders, I was maybe 50% sure of myself. So did that make me crazy? I suddenly wasn't that sure of any of it anymore. Of my bike, the course, and certainly not the other riders. We charged into the first really sharp corner, and a guy passed me for a second. But I remembered and hit the power. That made me feel good. After 2 laps, I was still locked in the same position. temptation to go faster than I should, telling myself, don't get greedy. Don't go over the edge. Just 2 laps left, but suddenly everything seemed to work against me. My eyes burned with sweat. All at once I felt like an old horse in a field of young colts. And then there was Big Daddy, waiting. And by God, it happened. Even as I fell, I thought, the motor's dead, and no time to pump it. So I squeezed the clutch, rolled it back down the hill, and let it start itself. Now I forgot my aches, my limits, everything but trying to catch up. Then I hit some loose stuff. Marbles, they call it. I was 20 points down late in the last quarter, and now there was just no way. And all that was left was finishing. Just one more corner now, and I'd see the man with the flag. Then Gary Bailey, and after that, a long, cold drink. Better than I thought it was.
Was it all right? You look good. Hey, how about the start going up the hill? What dared you as first over down the hill? I couldn't even believe it. It was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. What happened to you coming down the hill over here whenever you fell?
Oh, I brake too hard.
Too much braking?
Yeah, like at the back end, I was...
You know, you were in 4th place then. What happened the second time you come down?
Well, I got caught in the loose stuff over there and he turned it first.
How'd you feel?
I don't feel like doing it again right now.
Well, I think what we ought to do is get something cold to drink and rest a few minutes. And
Bring back the basketball.
So Bill Russell ends his week at Saddleback. He may well retire to the luxury of his street bike, but he won't forget that brief time when he lived once again in a world belonging to the young, with a lot of laughter and just a touch of defiance.
He's a motorcycle racing pioneer. He passes on his wealth of knowledge to future generations. And he has a very low regard for some of your favorite riders.
They're wimps. They're wimps, except for the handful of guys like Carmichael and Stewart and guys that are serious about it and really putting their heart and soul into it. You can watch these guys, they don't have a clue.
His son was the biggest motocross star of his era, a multi-time champion with no limit in sight, until a crash left him in a wheelchair. His response was to become the best wheelchair athlete in the world, winner of the Ironman Triathlon.
Every once in a while you take a breath and you look back at the shore and you're like, I am a long ways from land, and you come out of the water and you're a changed person.
Now another member of this remarkable motocross family has high hopes for a racing career. This week, 3 generations of the famed Bailey family get together at the track, and Bike Week drops in on the reunion. School is in session, and the subject is motocross. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lake Sugar Tree Motorsports Park, Axton, Virginia. I'm Dave Despain. This is Bike Week. We didn't come here to go to school. I'm afraid those days are past. No, instead, we were lured here by the family name synonymous with Lake Sugar Tree. We've come here for a reunion of the Bailey family. Their family album spans the history of motocross in America. In 1965, international star Torsten Hallman made his first exhibition appearance in the U.S., and Gary was there.
I was probably one of the top 4 or 5 American riders. And Torsten just made us look like we didn't even know how to ride a motorcycle. I mean, he just killed us.
Fast forward a single racing generation. American kids, fast learners, had come to rule the motocross world. And fastest of them all was Gary's son, David.
My first win at Anaheim Stadium. You know, that was like, wow. You know, I was like looking back, like, where is everybody? I mean, I got Hannah back there, and Brock, and O'Mara, and Mark Barnett, and all these guys who I had their autographs, I had their jerseys, and I beat them all.
His first ever Supercross, the checkered flag waves for Dave Bailey.
Great, I wish everybody out there could feel the way I do right now, man. This is an all-time high.
It kind of sunk in that next week, like, man, I'm one of them. I can win this stuff too now. I mean, they look at me and go, man, there's Bailey.
Now comes the third generation, but Sean Bailey is not what you might expect. Riding less than 3 years, he certainly hasn't been pushed into a racing career. The son of a TV star, he's never even been interviewed until today.
I got a motorcycle when I was 11. I've been riding ever since. I love it. I ride with my dad all the time. He gives me tips, so it's a good way to learn.
It's a storybook tale of family racing success. Dad, now Grandpa, a pioneer of the sport, nicknamed the Iron Man of motocross, a hard-nosed racer who went on to become a hard-ass teacher. The professor, his motocross school, passing down his knowledge to future generations. His son, star pupil, best rider of his own generation. In just 4 seasons, he won 30 races and 4 titles.
When you look at the way Ricky wins...
Now retired to a life as one of the sport's premier television commentators. And now comes the third generation. Sean Bailey, ready for his own crack at the big league. There is just one flaw in this otherwise storybook tale of family success in a challenging sport: David's wheelchair. Paralyzed in a racetrack crash, he remembers his initial reaction.
This can't be happening. I'll be fine tomorrow. I'll wake up and everything will move fine and I'll be okay. I might still make the first race, you know, or I'll miss the Supercross, but I'll make the Nationals. And it took a long time for me to make that adjustment, realize that, man, I got hurt, you know? I never saw it coming.
When you're a champion, you know what it takes to fight, you know, and to make a comeback from something. And, you know, the time he said to me, he says, you know, I remember this, him saying, you know, I don't know why. I don't know why me. I don't know. He said, God's got a plan. He said, I don't know what it is, but he wants me to do good and excel at something else. And I went, shh. That's a championship attitude there. When you get knocked down, get up and fight.
When he was racing, more often than not, it was those trying to keep up with David who found themselves on the ground. When we come back, we're going to spend some more time with the true superstar of the early 80s. Among other things, we'll find out who he considered his toughest competition. It's the professor at work, sometimes cajoling, sometimes congratulating, oftentimes cracking the whip. For Gary Bailey, teaching motocross is the logical conclusion to a life spent on 2 wheels.
I rode desert when I first started, when I was 13 years old. I then got into some scrambles racing, which was kind of a little motocross actually, but it was not with the full knobby tires. All natural terrain stuff. You know, they just went out, bannered it, and said, there it is. You don't plow the track. You don't do barely water. You don't do anything. That's what you race on. I like that. I did really well at the scramble stuff.
There followed a digression into TT and flat track, including the biggest of the big leagues, Ascot, on an open class Triumph. Then, a life-changing moment.
I got a Hodaka and went to this first thing called motocross, and I go, what the heck is that? I don't know what motocross was. Oh, it's like the old scrambles. And I'm going, oh, dude, I'm there. So I took my trail Hodaka and took the lights off it that I had, and I went there, man, and I'm like, I want to motocross. And I got there, and I fell in love with it. I just go, this is the best deal ever.
Now, the AMA record book says Gary Bailey won 2 nationals in '72. It fails to mention he did most of his winning and had already begun to shape the sport before the AMA ever got around to organizing a national series.
Now imagine if you pushed on this bar too.
But his lasting contribution is in teaching. He was first to establish a motocross school, and he takes the business of teaching seriously.
5 years old, 50 years old, 50cc, 500cc. I don't care. Everybody gets the same treatment. Here's the deal. You don't do it right, I'm going to stay on your butt till you get it right. Plain and simple, okay? If you can't handle it, you got a problem. You come here for me to teach you. I'm going to teach you. You're going to be a better rider when you leave here.
Over the years, no one benefited more from the professor's instruction than his son, the little professor, David. But it was tough going.
It was never good enough. You know, I couldn't ride good enough or sweep the floor good enough or wash my bike good enough. It was always, he's like, what about this spot under here you missed with all the mud? You didn't lay the bike over, did you? You know, when you're young, it's like, you know, what difference does it make? And then as you get a little older, you see the value to being organized and to being clean. And there's lots of kids that are good, but, you know, I think that I stood out a little bit more because I paid attention to detail.
Oh, David stood out all right. In '83, '4, '5, and '6, he was the man to beat. Imagine how many races and titles he'd have won had cruel fate not intervened. So, what's his greatest achievement?
Whenever I needed to make an adjustment, whenever I needed to step up and win a certain race or a title or beat a certain person that had challenged me, every time I put my mind to something in motocross, I achieved it every single time. So that is what I'm most proud of.
So, who was there to challenge young Bailey? Oh, it's an impressive cast of characters. The 1986 Anaheim Supercross, for example. Classic matchup. Number 6, David Bailey. Number 5, Rick Johnson.
The toughest for me would have to be David Bailey. David was the type of rider that was good because we were a little bit opposite. He was smooth and calculated. I was just go fast and hang on. But he was a guy that when I got up in the morning, he was the reason I put on my running shoes.
He wouldn't care if he was tired, if his lines didn't work out, if his bike didn't work. If he just wanted to beat me, then he gave it all he had. And he was one of those guys where, like, if you watch tennis and you see a guy and he hits some cross-court shot and the guy on the other end has got to run all the way, he almost ends up in the first row of seats, and then the guy figures, well, I'll just hit it to the other side, and I got him. And he runs back and he gets that one too. Now all of a sudden, you're not sure if you can beat this guy. And that was the challenge that Johnson put on me.
Johnson was tough, but he was not the ultimate challenge for David Bailey. That honor was reserved for the Hurricane, Bob Hanna.
Nobody really bothered me the way Hanna did. Hanna, I never sat on the starting line going, I got this guy. If he was there, then he was a problem. And if he was behind you, and if he wanted to win, Bob, towards those later days in 83, 84, he was kind of like, if we went to Unadilla or Daytona and it was rough and a track he liked and he wanted to win, he would. He was just better than me. I never felt like, I always looked at him like he was my dad, and I just kind of wasn't worthy of all of his achievements. That never wore off. Still I get nervous when I'm around Bob.
All right, when we come back, David's post-paralysis ordeal and the next great challenge of his athletic life. Though he's a hard-nosed guy, the professor of motocross knows learning should be fun. So he leads his students down Lake Sugar Tree's paved entrance road. The lesson? Control your bike using only your lower body. Grandson Sean has quickly picked up on the fact that it's also fun to try and freak out the cameraman. And when the lesson advances to one-point control, why, number 389 outshines the teacher. Maybe he's the next big star. Most often, though, you'll see the professor cracking his famous whip. He moderates his tough guy approach only when necessary and makes no apology for that.
Sometimes I have to back off. I try not to back off, but I can kind of read most of their faces and I go, maybe I need to cool it just a little bit on this guy. And then there's others that I can see they're getting mad, and I don't care. Because I'm going, you know what, you can get as mad as you want. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing I'm going to do to you with this little stick or this little whip thing that I have that's going to hurt as bad as that trip to the hospital in the ambulance. Nothing. And I know for a fact that the majority of what I'm telling these guys, 99% of it, if they get it right, they're going to spend less time on the ground.
The Baileys are painfully aware of the cost of crashing. David's accident nearly killed him, not at the time, but in the painful aftermath.
To get in a wheelchair and go race or to do something else, it didn't interest me at all, so I had no interest in anything that was available for me to do. It was just, I lost everything I loved. Friends were still around me, but it was like, I can't do anything with them. you know, except sit here and watch them do stuff. And so I was completely crushed.
I've always known there was a risk involved in this sport. Never thought I'd have my kid, you know. Always knew it when I was racing.
There was a point in time where I got really low, and I was thinking like, okay, what would be the easiest way for me to just check out? How could I just end it? Because I've been there, done that, and my best days are behind me, and tomorrow does not excite me. The alarm clock didn't matter. And so, you know, now I see the value of hitting rock bottom, because until you actually get all the way down, then you have no reason to really be like, man, that's terrible, and I don't want to spend any more time here. This is pretty bad, and I'm sick of this, and I can make the future whatever I wanted. So I just chose to focus on what I could do, and little by little, I dug my way back out of that hole.
After the first couple of years, David made it easier, because David dealt with it well, and he started just coming around and making everything a challenge. And I guess that comes from being a champion now.
As a racing champion, one of David's strengths was his training program. In his time of crisis, he fell back on that.
The first thing that I could do still was exercise. And I just figured, look, I'll just push my chair, you know, down to the end of the long driveway over there where I lived, and I'd push it down to the end and back, and then I was like, well, I could do that twice. Well, I should go down and make a right and go to the top of the hill. And then I started to feel a little bit better. And then people were like, man, I can't believe you pushed your chair that far. And then I started getting a little bit of confidence.
Bailey, having turned a corner, found a new goal. The wheelchair division of the Ironman Triathlon. A combination wheelchair race, ocean swim, and bicycle race, Ironman is universally recognized as the ultimate physical challenge. In 3 tries, David finished 3rd, 2nd, and 1st.
I remember before he went over, he goes, Dad, I'm winning this thing. I'm winning this thing. I'm going to kill those guys. You know? And when he left, it was a different attitude than he had the other 2 years before. Like, yeah, you know, it's like, no, I'm winning. He's winning. You know, something there's got to stop him because he's ready to win it.
For the 2000 Ironman Triathlon and Cycle Division, you did it, David!
Sure enough, David came home the winner. He conquered one of the most difficult physical challenges in the world and confronted a few of his own fears.
Swimming out there by myself, training before the race, it was pretty scary. You know, I'm not really itching to get back out and swim way out in the ocean in Hawaii when we go visit. But during the race, it never crossed my mind, not once. I thought about, man, this is what I trained for, this is what I visualize, I'm in it. I don't have to wonder what it feels like anymore and see those people coming up the hill all wet and go, man, I wonder what that's like. I know, this is it, I'm doing it. You know, and every once in a while you take a breath and you look back at the shore and you're like, I am a long ways from land, and you come out of the water and you're a changed person.
Well, from David's Hawaiian triumph, we're going to move next to Father Gary's predictably hard-nosed take on the current stars of American motocross. You won't want to miss this. Gary Bailey has helped teach racing to some of today's biggest stars, but he sees something very important missing from modern motocross.
This sport needs qualified. Who's qualified? It needs people to help these kids to look at it and make better decisions. You know, they got their trainers, their physical trainers, and they got their mechanics. They got usually 2 of those. And they got their team manager, and they got this nutrition guy, and they got this guy. And they got, well, where's the coach? Where is the guy that says, hey, try this line, change your body a little bit, try a little different gear here? Where is that guy? Why is it that he's not important in motocross like it is in every other sport that you can think of?
Sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse, the coach for a lot of kids is dad. Father and son. Father and son. Gary tells us that when David was Sean's age, they had a deal.
You give me 100%, I'll give you 100%. You give me 80%, I'll give you 80%. But I'm not going to give you 100% for you to give me back 80%. That's the problem with most kids today. Parents are giving them 100%, kids are putting out 50 and 60%. Waste of time, waste of money, waste of effort for what? They're beating their head against a wall. Kid has got to want it. And if the kid doesn't want it, what are you doing? Trying to relive your childhood? That's what half of them are doing out there. Something they never got to do, they're trying to get their kid to do it. You know, that's a wrong reason to do it.
Now, if you think the professor is tough on mini bike parents, listen to what he has to say about some of today's top motocross racers.
The riders, they get paid too much money and they're too damn lazy. The guys today, Hannah said it, David said it, they're wimps. They're wimps, except for the handful of guys like Carmichael and Stewart and guys that are serious about it and really putting their heart and soul into it. You can watch these guys, they don't have a clue. They have no clue. Half of those guys that got a factory or a semi-factory ride, they're just happy to get a paycheck and they're happy with going to the race, getting the race result good enough that they can just go, yeah, I'm a factory rider and I'm getting my paycheck and hey, I got a good nice house and I got a nice car and I'm living good and you know, it's gonna last for at least another 5 or 6 years because hey, you know, there's nobody around right now that's better than me, so you know, what do I got to worry about? Then you got the handful of the Stewarts and the Carmichaels that are going, no, I don't want to just be there. I want to be the best.
Hey, Gary, tell us what you really think. When we come back, the grandson of the outspoken professor of motocross says he wants his track at the big league. Though he's only 14, Sean Bailey is pretty clear about his goals.
Just win championships, be up there with all the top guys, be just as good as them at least, maybe a little bit better.
Well, I got a lot of issues with Sean because I got hurt and that ended my career. You know, but I look at the fact that I was able to get so much from the sport and it's still bringing me smiles and happiness and satisfaction and through all of this I've become an even bigger inspiration to some people than I was when I raced. So I don't look at that so much, you know, as much as people might think like, well, I don't want Sean to do this double or triple because man, you know, he could get hurt like me. I don't think of it so much like that. I mean, the odds of him getting hurt the same way I did are pretty slim. If it's in the cards, and I want him to try, and I want him to understand how important it is to try, and to pay attention to detail, and to listen to me, and to listen to Grandpa, and that makes my dad sound old, but to pay attention to us, you know, and give it everything. And if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to be disappointed. I'll be like, well, hey, we gave it a shot, you know. It wasn't for nothing. We learn a lot. This sport is great, teaches you so many things. All the people in this sport that either were very successful or close, they go off and fly planes, they go off and win Ironman competitions and almost win the Indianapolis 500 and you know, win the Baja and be successful in business. And so this is a great sport and I want him to get as far as he can and learn all those lessons along the way that'll make the rest of his life a lot easier.
But there's one last thing. As Sean Bailey's education continues, he's not the only one who's learning. You have a good relationship with both your dad and your grandfather?
Yeah, I think I do.
I always thought that I would be like a better dad than my dad was. I was like, man, he was kind of like, I could never really, it just was never good enough and he kind of got on me here and there. And you know, it wasn't bad, it was great, but I just thought that when I had my chance, any of the stuff that I kind of didn't like, I just wouldn't do that. I'd handle that a different way. And I am so right smack dab in the middle of doing the same things that he did to me. I can't even believe it.
He's in a situation that I went through, and he knows what I went. Now he's fine. He's going, Dad, Jesus. Now I understand why when you were telling me to do something, and I was like, man, I didn't want to change. I didn't want to do this. He goes, now I understand what the problem was, because God, I get so frustrated with him.
When I see that he's capable of doing something and he's not doing it, it drives me nuts.
It's funny because David talks about how he goes out with Sean, he goes out with Sean. I've been trying to get him to do that for a month. He goes, now you go out there and all of a sudden he's doing it. And he's like, God, what are you doing different? And I'm going, well, you know, I'm not dead. I think that's it, I'm not dead.
Does the help you get from Gary, from your grandfather, is it different from the advice and the help that you get from your dad?
Yeah, my dad's a little bit more nicer about it.
I'm trying to find the best ways to encourage him, and every once in a while I got to take a trip back here and have Grandpa yell at him so I can kind of sit back and observe.
Whether or not Sean finds his way to the top of the game, his father and grandfather will be proud of him just the same. That's as it should be. And if he is blessed with racetrack success, he will add his own chapter to a family album that already documents one of the greatest names in the history of motocross. With thanks to Gary, David, and Sean, I'm Dave Despain. That's Bike Week. We'll see you next time.